Hello, my name is Martina O'Connor and I'm a tutor with the Adult Education in Blanchardstown, Swords and Balbriggan. We're doing these classes online because of the COVID-19, so I hope you're all keeping safe and keeping well. Today I'm going to talk about, firstly, I'd like to talk about warm-up exercises and why we do them. Warm-up exercises help with relaxation, breathing, diction, concentration, focus and movement. They also help warm up the vocal cords. The first relaxation exercise or warm-up exercise I'd like to do is a breathing one. Now, the breathing exercises are good to help relax the body, but it also helps with the deep breathing from the diaphragm. It helps you get more volume into your voice, and it takes the pressure off trying to get the volume from your throat. So I'll just stand up for this. So this exercise, if you breathe in for 4, hold for 4, and out for 4. And I'll just demonstrate it, and then you can do it. Okay, so breathe in for 4 and stretch up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then out for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you just let your body hang and feel all the tension, anxiety, just roll down your arms into your hands and out into the middle of the floor. And if you do that about 4 or 5 times, really breathing deeply, and when you get to about the 5th time, when you're coming up, you gather everything up that you've breathed out and you throw it over your shoulders. Then shake out your whole body. So that's a very simple one, and it just helps warm up the muscles in the body and also with your breathing. Another exercise that helps with the vocal cords and the tongue is saying tongue twisters. For example, red lorry, yellow lorry, red lorry, yellow lorry, red lorry, yellow lorry. It's difficult to say, and you try and get faster and faster. Another one is she sells seashells on the seashore. Now, the different sounds will exercise different muscles on your tongue and your throat. And if you do those a few times, it's good if you've got somebody to work with, because you can have a bit of fun with it as well. So when you have practiced your stretching and your breathing and your tongue twisters, you can move on to movement and connections. So one simple movement exercise is just walking around a room, and when you meet somebody, you're walking all different directions, but when you come face to face with somebody, you smile and nod. There's no words involved, but it's just acknowledgement of the other person. And then we move that up to what I call hand-to-hand exercises. So everybody is moving around the room in different directions, and the instructor or teacher will call out instructions such as hand-to-hand. So that means the nearest person to you, you just put your hand to their hand, just like that, and then move on. It's a quick exercise, and it's about making connections and getting comfortable with the people you know. It's particularly good for a new group that don't know each other. And then that moves on to word at a time. So people again are walking around the room. The instructor will say get into pairs. So whoever's nearest to you, you just stand with them and you say one word to each other at a time. So one person might say car, chair, house, dog. And the idea is that you go very fast and you don't censor yourself. Again, it's about breaking down barriers and getting comfortable with the people you're working with. And then that exercise progresses into a story word at a time. So again, you start off with 2s and you try and make up a story word at a time. And the idea behind that is it doesn't have to make a lot of sense. It doesn't have to be based in reality. You just go with it. And then that develops into story in a group. So you maybe instead of pairs, you work in 4s and you create stories. But the important thing is that you don't censor yourself and you go as fast as you can and you have some fun. Exercise that I like to do is called fortunate, unfortunate. This usually is in pairs and it just takes a little bit of more thought. So we start off with two people. One is considered fortunate, the other person is unfortunate. So one person, the fortunate person said, for example, got up this morning and it was a lovely sunny day. The other person might answer by saying, unfortunately, as soon as I stepped outside the door, it started to lash rain. Fortunate person says, luckily I had an umbrella. Unfortunate says, unfortunately there was a hole in the umbrella. And that'll go on, then you'll switch over. It does take a little bit more thought, but it's also about listening to what the other person says and responding and keeping the whatever instruction you've been given, whether you're fortunate or unfortunate. There are a lot more exercises to do and like different exercises for different things, but I'm just going to move on now to talking about giving meaning to words. So for an example of that, if you pick a nursery rhyme that you know well, for example, Hickory Dickory Dock, there would be different emotions on a piece of paper, on different pieces of paper, maybe anger, joy, fear. So you pick the pieces of paper randomly and you put the emotion behind the rhyme. So if you're saying Hickory Dickory Dock and you pick out the word fear, you say it like it's the most frightening thing you ever heard. And the idea behind this exercise is to exaggerate, because it's more fun if you exaggerate. For example, like fear behind Hickory Dickory Dock. Hickory Dickory Dock. The mouse ran up the clock. The clock struck one. The mouse ran down. Hickory Dickory Dock. Now, that's just my example, and in a class situation, everybody would have a go. I don't like doing examples myself because I don't want people to think they have to do them the same as me, but it's just to give you the idea. And if it was joy, it would be the most joyous thing you ever heard. Now, the idea behind this exercise is bringing words alive, and when you're learning scripts, it'll make more sense because scripts are just words on a page. It's up to the actor to put the emotion behind it. So it's a good way to see how the meaning of things can change when you put a totally different meaning behind the words. And you can have a lot of fun with that, particularly if you really exaggerate. And because if it's joyous or it's the funniest thing you ever heard, you know, you can have quite a laugh with that. It's great fun to create characters in a drama class, and there's a few exercises that I will go through about creating characters. One way to create characters is maybe using pictures. So I have a few different pictures here, some with individuals, so you can see that. So that's just a picture of a man on his own. So the idea is that you really look at the body language of the person in the picture, the face, the way the arms are folded, and you'd study it. So you might think, okay, what's this person thinking about? You know, why are they standing like that? Are they happy? Are they sad? If they were to say a sentence, what would they say? Okay, so that's an individual. Another picture of an individual. And so if you compare the two, it's quite different body language from the two of them. So you could take on the character of the different pictures and then create a dialogue between them, but taking your clues from their body language. Start off with that the stance that they have in the pictures, and then go forward and see what comes out, what language and dialogue comes out of your mouth. This is an example of two people in a picture. So how you would do that, you would take the stance of the people in the picture, stand like them, copy the body language, and hold it, and see then what dialogue comes out. What are they talking about? What's going on with them? You know, are they serious? What way are they dressed? Where are they? So there's a whole story going on there. That's just another one, a very different. There's quite a lot of emotion in that picture. So if you were to copy the stance of those people in the picture, you're getting a lot of information before you speak. So that's a way, one way of creating characters. And there's lots of different pictures, and you can have 2, 3 people. There's a few more here, and it's a fun way. There's 2. Then copy the stance. They're holding hands. They're smiling. What's the news? What's the story there? But that's your starting point, the picture. Start with the stance, copy how they are, breathe it in, hold it, and then let the dialogue come out. Another one, again, very different. A lot of emotion in that picture. What is the story? Build the stories. 3 characters in that. So where would you go with that story? Okay, that's an individual. And another individual. But it's just a starting point. So I'll just go through what you do with the picture. So choose a picture from a selection. Look closely at the picture, at the people in the picture, facial expressions, the body language. How are they feeling? Where are they? What's happening? What happens next? What are the emotions? What do they say? So that's when you begin to create the dialogue. But the important thing is for creating any characters that you have a backstory. So the backstory in this case is the pictures. That's your starting point. And if you go forward from there, but you hold that first impression with you as you're creating the character. Another way to create characters is using costumes and objects. For example, hats. Hats can be great for creating characters because you study the hat, the shape of it, the colour, you try it on, see how it feels. How do you feel in that hat? What kind of person would wear that hat? And usually when you put the hat on, you would start moving around. Another one, very different hat. It's a bit big, but put the hat on, move around, see how it makes you feel. And again, take your time. Let the dialogue come to you. Don't force it. Another hat that's a bit big. Go, there's another one. Okay. So put them on. How does it make you feel? How does it make you move? What thoughts come to your head? And if you take your time with it, the idea of that is everybody in the class would pick up a hat. And as you're walking around, moving, you begin to interact and see where the dialogue carries you. And again, you can have great fun and enjoy yourself with it. Exercise I call an item exercise. So it's like it could be hats, scarves, fabric, sometimes objects, but objects is more about story. So you choose the item, hat in this example, examine it closely, what it's made of. Is it old? Is it tattered? Is it fancy? Is the texture hard, smooth, rough? The colour, what does that say to you? Is it old, new, modern? Is it big on you? Does it fit you okay? How do you feel in it? And if another way to do it is if the item could talk, what would it say? So say the hat, if you examine the hat, what's the story of the hat? You could become the hat, the character. Where has it been all this time? Has it been to the races? Was it stuck in a wardrobe? What's the story behind the hat? So that's another way to create characters. Creating characters brings us on to improvisation. Improvisation can be great fun, but there's a few rules around improvisation. So the idea with improv is that it's spontaneous and it's open. So it should always be open questions and going with the flow. What hinders people in improvisation is the fear of the unknown, the fear of saying something stupid or making a fool of themselves. But that is, you can't do that in improvisation. So it's the fear of you try to plan. And if you try and plan an improvisation, you kill it. So the idea is improvisation is you respond to whatever is happening. You respond to whatever the other person is saying, and you don't think about it. You just respond. So very important to listen, and body language is important. So you stay in the moment with improvisation and you have fun with it. And improvisation can go anywhere, and it should, and you let it. I suppose the trouble with improvisation is it going on too long. So it takes practice, but when you feel it's kind of needs to, it's coming to a natural end, you go with that. Sometimes you can turn it in another direction spontaneously, but if you think about it too hard, you'll kill it. So the thing about improvisation is spontaneous, go with the flow, don't overthink it. And the other thing that really kills improvisation is when people try and be funny, because the humor in improvisation is when people are spontaneous and they come out with things. It's just a reaction. That's usually when it's funny. If people try and be funny, it usually dies. And the good thing about improvisation is sometimes you can come up with some really good characters or stories. It could be the start of a story. Sometimes a really good line comes out of an improvisation that you can build on and go from there. Um, but it's only the start, and usually it's not the end product. So the important thing with improvisation is just go with it, enjoy it, and don't censor yourself. A good improvisation exercise is to use the word it. So it might just start with, "Did you see it?" The other person says, "Yeah, I saw it. What did you think of it?" "Well, I was a bit scared of it, to be honest." Nobody knows what the it is. The only information the audience get is how the people react to it. And it can go anywhere, and the it can turn out to be anything at all. But the information is by how the actors talk about it. They don't say what it is, because if you say what it is, then you kill the improvisation. But it's a good one, and you can have fun with that as well. These exercises are preparing you to work with script and actually perform a piece that's already scripted. Working with script it's hard work. There's no easy way to learn lines. It's just going over them. The most ideal way to learn your lines is working with a fellow actor. You don't always have that. Another way is to record yourself saying the lines, leave a gap, so you respond, and that's a good way to do it as well. Script is contains all the information about your character. Sometimes you'll get a brief description of the character at the very beginning of the script. It might only give you an age, it might only give you a name. So it's between the director and the actor to really find the character. And one thing I would say, read the script as many times, at least 7 times, to gather the information about your character, because it'll all be there. It'll be there in the way the other characters speak to your character, how your character responds. There'll be descriptions, there'll be clues in the script. So that's where you'll get your information. And don't force the character. Like, the character should emerge after a few readings of the script, after working with some of the other actors. And I suppose that goes back to our exercise about the rhyme, because when you get a script, it's only words on page. The actor brings it to life. So it's the emotion behind the words that bring the script to life. And I suppose that's where the director comes in. A good director will let the actor discover the character. They will point you in the right direction. But if you let the character come out gradually, it's more authentic. And try not to have a preconceived idea of how somebody else did a character, because for the actor it's quite personal. And it's very important when you're working with script to listen to your fellow actors, to be not jumping ahead, not thinking about the next scene. A bit like improvisation, except it's, the lines. You're try and stay in the moment, and that can be difficult, and that takes practice. But it makes a difference between a good performance and a very dead performance. So, what else can I say about drama? It's difficult to do it like this because all of these things are practiced. And when you're in a room full of people, there's much more life, and you say your lines and you react, and there's a lot of energy going on. So that's just a few quick tips. Another thing I'd like to say it's quite important with drama is warming down and getting rid of the characters, leaving them behind you before you go back to yourself. Because if you've done a good performance, you will be completely immersed in the character. So you want to shake that off before you leave. And again, you can do that with breathing. There's different exercises, but again, all the exercise that we start with, breathing in, holding and breathing out, and shaking off the character and throwing it over your shoulder. That's a good way to shake off your character. And if you're working with other people, there's pats on the back and things like that that can shake off the character. Another way is saying a line of your character and then saying something as yourself. So you leave the character behind you and you come back to yourself. And that's quite important because you don't want to leave a performance carrying that character with you, because you might get yourself in trouble depending on the character. Anyway, we'll leave it there. Hope you enjoy. Hope you enjoyed the video. I thought I stopped it there. And hopefully we'll be all back in the classroom soon so we can get some good drama going and have fun.